two that will be thud, but we'll be tackling and playing full game, so, we're excited about that. I think it's a great opportunity because of our numbers to let guys get out there and play in front of a good crowd, and it sounds like we're gonna have a good crowd, and, for 51 of our new guys, now, I guess not all of them will be participating, because a couple of guys will be dinged up, but, that'll be their first time, playing, in front of a crowd, so, great, opportunity for all of them to grade out and finish off their spring right away, and then we've been grading every practice and really evaluating every practice, so I know that they wanna finish this last week strong, the whole time. Again, maybe a drive or two of thud, but we'll be tackling the rest of the time.
Except the quarterbacks?
Except the quarterbacks, but, we'll see as the scrimmage goes on, how it goes. It's been solid. Every day you come off the field and, you get challenged, and, you have a certain opinion every day, is a new day. That's kinda how you have to look at it when you're a quarterback, because if you think what happened in the last practice is gonna affect the next, it's not. Defense is gonna throw new stuff at you. We have some things that we're installing, different situations, and that is one thing as we get into the last week of spring, more situational stuff. But, I feel like the room is strong. I feel like we have an opportunity to build some depth behind Julian, and then build, a future with the guys that are in the room. And so, we're working to build these guys up every day, but they have to realize and understand that, certainly Julian's a starter, but, they're one play away from playing in these games, and, we all know, the history of, guys getting injured and having guys step up. So depth is important at every position, but we know how important it is at quarterback. So, there has been, a lot of growth in that room, but we all know what the expectation is. The expectation is to step in and play, at championship level.
How important was it to bring in a guy like Justin this offseason?
Well, I thought it was important to bring in some veteran presence in the room, which was a good balance. Justin, I've been very impressed with his approach, very professional. He puts a lot of work in off the field, and then when he stands in front of the guys in the huddle, he's prepared. He's made some improvements, and he knows what it means to get prepared and to work. So those have all been positive things. And so, he's learning a new offense and how we do things here. But there has been certainly some bright spots.
Steve?
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're looking for. But there was a lot of, terminology, on both sides that we sort of put together on this, whether it's formations or concepts. But, he brings a different perspective to the table, and I think, being reflective in the off season, once you've been here going on 10 years, you certainly know what you know, and that's good. But there's a lot of different ways to do things, and I felt like it was the right time to allow Arthur to come in and sort of, give his perspective on the offense, about where, he can see it going. And then, we're gonna come together after the spring and start to, put more and more things that he's done, more and more things that we've done together, and really try to shape this out based on our personnel. But his opinion is very important to me, because he is coming from a different perspective. Now, that being said, the West Coast route tree and things, and the way he does things is familiar to me, just because, when I was in the NFL and working for some of the different coaches I've been with growing up, a lot of the things that he's done, we see it the same way. We talk the same language when it comes from that tree. But over the years, the West Coast offense has everyone just sort of gone off into different directions with it, and so he has his sort of variation of it, and so do we. But I think everybody's input in the room will be important, and then ultimately we're going to do what the players can do best, and that's the number one thing that we got to focus on. We're going to finish up this week, and then put the cut-ups together, and then figure out how we're going to tackle. Well, in the spring, just to give you an idea of kind of how it goes, we get off the field here, we have a couple things that go on, whether it's media, and what we have is typically we have recruits, and we have a schedule on how we do this. I do a lot of the meeting with the recruits in my office, and so they get going with the film. I typically, and this is sort of the way it's been the last couple of years during the spring, I'll watch all of the film on my own, And then sometimes when I have more time, I'll jump in there and watch it with the offense, but I typically will watch it on my own and then either put together a cut-up or get feedback based on what I see the next day at our staff meeting, and then we build the practice for the next day. So that's really sort of how it goes. A lot of the stuff that I do in this time of year in the spring is typically in the staff meetings when we have everybody in there. Once we get into preseason camp and during the season, then it allows me more time because the recruiting isn't as hectic with all the people in the building and everything that comes with it. So this week will be a great week for us. We have our high school clinic, as many of you know, on Thursday, which is great. And so I'm expecting great numbers there. You know, we have Matt and Arthur speaking Thursday night. John Gruden will be here. He'll be speaking Thursday night, and then Friday, and then, you know, folks can stay for the spring game, which is huge. And then the spring game, as you know, is you know, a great day for recruiting. A lot of people coming into town for that, former players, current players' families, and all the fans being a part of that. But then again, recruiting is a big part of that day. And then that night we have our big NIL fundraiser, Saddle Up. So it's a busy week, and that's kind of how things go this time of year. You got a lot going on, but those guys are obviously focusing on the X's and O's this time of year. Once spring kind of slows down a little bit, we get through June, it allows me more time and more free time to get around these guys a little bit more in terms of the X's and O's, but involved in all the special teams meetings, try to jump in the position meetings the best I can. Well, because we had 51 new players, I don't know if you remember, but when we used to go to, you know, preseason camp, when everybody used to show up in the summers, I used to remember, you know, when I first showed up to camp, I had a box fan, I met my roommate, and I stayed in the dorm, and I got a piece of white tape on the front of my helmet that said Day, and everybody said, Day, get over here. Well, now we wear the Guardian caps, so you can't really put anybody's name on the front. So Kevin Reese was creative in how he did that, so that's what we're doing this spring. Well, there's pluses and minuses to everything, and having the spring portal not available, the good news on that is that you know what your team is. That is the good part of it. We all know what the negatives are of how crazy December and January is, and what comes with all of that. And not to mention, you know, I don't want to say, you know, but you know, once you have your team, you pretty much have your team, and that's in January, and then, you know, you have that all the way through the next year. So there are injuries, there's certain things that could happen, but you can't replace them. You can't get anybody off of waivers, obviously. You don't have anybody in the spring portal. So, you know, there's a lot of pluses and minuses. But again, to your point, the pluses are we know what we have, and we have a full roster. So spring can be a little more productive that way. You know, now we're not going to be sitting around, you know, dealing with another round of you know, conversations and negotiations. So again, another major positive to this. So, you know, for us, we're gonna do exit interviews here next week, give guys feedback. They're gonna get away for a couple weeks, come back for the summer session, which will be huge for us. Guys will go on the road recruiting in high school recruiting. They changed the rule on that, so more guys will be able to go on the road, which is a good thing, I believe. And then we'll finish, you know, June up with our high school camps, and then our official visits on campus. We're trying to get everybody to communicate more just across the board loud, let your voice be heard. And it's all of those guys back there. And we play with those three safeties or the nickel coming down, and all three of those guys have to communicate. The corners have to communicate, so the linebackers have to communicate. So really just talking to them about being loud, and volume exudes confidence. So it's everybody, but certainly Caleb is, you know, someone that was excellent at it. He did a good job in the meeting rooms connecting with guys and making sure everybody was on the same page there. That was almost just as important as when he's on the field making the calls, you know. And so that communication is an area, like, again, we put up on the board some of our goals for the spring, and one of them was communication and creating a personality as a team. I think we're getting better at communicating, but again, we still have a long way to go. Well, first of it, it's a location to throw, then it's the ability to transition into a running back, which is really what it is, and then how cleanly can we catch the ball, put the ball away, and not try to catch it with our body, play extended, play big, and then it's just practice habits. And so it's something we got to continue to get better at. There's been some really good catch and runs, but we got to find those hidden yards in there, and you know, on 3rd and 6, we got to catch it and make 3 yards, you know. And, on first down, we gotta catch that ball at 4 and make 6, you know, and whether it's a running back or a wide receiver, once that ball's in your hand at tight end, you know, again, find those hidden yards and, something that's definitely an emphasis point. I think we've been solid at it, but I certainly think we can get better.
And it seems like there's a lot of guys, Kyle, Devin, Brock, Chris, who are pushing for playing time there. Do you feel like you guys are gonna rotate more receivers than maybe you have in years past this year?
My guess would be, if I'm predicting it, I would say probably yes. I think a lot of guys are playing themselves into roles again that I feel like they can play for us. Still yet to be seen, we're not gonna make any decisions coming out of the spring, but I think if the competition continues and the guys continue to improve, you're gonna see guys get opportunities, and like you said, there's been times, it's been a little while where we played, 6 or 7 receivers, that was more like, 3 or 4 probably most recently, but we've done it before. If guys deserve to play, they're gonna play, and, we do have a good room with some good depth there, so, that'll keep those guys fresh, and it's a long season.
We got 3 more.
No, just another, point of evaluation on all the guys, is really what it would be, listen to the running backs, probably won't have, 3 of those guys out there, maybe probably not 4 of them. Turbo is probably not gonna make it, Legend's probably not gonna make it, so we're down running backs. So, we'll have to throw the ball some, which is good for the quarterbacks to get the ball out of their hand and see how they handle the environment. And then, get a chance to see the ball with the wide receivers and see what those guys do, and then pass rush and pass protection, and so it'll probably be some of that. Not that we won't run the ball, but with those guys down, you probably won't get as much of that. So, but just to see how guys respond in that environment will be the biggest thing.
Austin's special talent and getting the most out of him basically all 3 years for one of another time.
Yeah.
And is he special to you when you watch his video? So.
He certainly has talent, and but we got a lot of talented guys that have come through here,
Yeah.
and everybody who's come through has earned it. Typically, they earn it on special teams first, and then they go from there. But there's no question, why we recruit them. We could see the playmaking ability, but we also know how to develop them, and it's going to take being with Mick, getting stronger, and then learning the position of running back / wide receiver. I think that's probably the biggest thing that's frustrating, is he's not out there right now. So we don't quite have a good handle on, is he a running back, is he a receiver, what can he do the best? So we still gotta see what that looks like, but like we said, there's no question of talent, and so this summer will be big for him.
Is that crazy to you, or how would you explain that to somebody about what's going on, really?
Yeah,
You
it's
understand
hard
what
to-
I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm not sure what crazy is anymore.
Yeah.
People say crazy, people say Wild West, people say a lot of things, and I agree with what everybody's saying. It's a challenging time, but we're trying to figure it all out. And this is unprecedented times for sure. There's no question about it. And so we're not going to change our philosophy. We want to recruit great high school players, develop them, and then retain them. And a big part of that is the sphere of influence. And in particular with Jeremiah, when you talk about his family, when you talk about his agent, when you talk about, he keeps it really tight. There's great trust there, and to me that gives you a chance to sort through some of these difficult times. So that's it, and so we have to make sure that we stay focused on that. When we bring people into the building, that we still focus on that part of it. The player and the student athlete is very, very important, but who surrounds them is just as important nowadays.